Okay, we're starting our Civil War and Reconstruction test. Number 1 has a map of Virginia. It says it's the spring of 1865, and we have a key here that says that Grant from the north and Lee from the south are both moving towards one specific location, right there, Appomattox Courthouse. So what was the result of the events shown on the map? So it's really just asking you what happened at the Appomattox Courthouse. A. General Lee's troops received necessary reinforcements. B. General Grant's supply lines were completely cut off. C. General Lee surrendered to General Grant. Or D. General Grant and General Lee combined forces. All right, number 2, we have a painting. We see two gentlemen shaking hands. It says this painting shows artist Thomas Nast's interpretation of General Robert E. Lee's surrender to General Ulysses S. Grant, which ended the Civil War. Where did the events in this painting occur? A. A private home in Appomattox County, Virginia. B. The U.S. Capitol Building. C. A public church near Ford's Theater. Or D. A governor's mansion in Richmond, Virginia. Look at number 1 and number 2. They are both about the same topic. So if you knew one, you can totally answer the second one. Number 3. Why did the siege of Vicksburg affect the balance of power during the Civil War? Okay, before we even look at the answer choices, Vicksburg, I want you to think about that battle. Remember we kept making the shape of a V with our fingers? Why were we doing that? Why did we do that? Hold up a V right now. You won't look silly, I promise. Hold up a V. What did we do with our fingers when we made the shape of a V to talk about Vicksburg? Why was it important? Okay, now let's look at our answers. A. Several important Confederate generals were killed. B. Union troops were pushed back across the Ohio River. C. The Confederate territory was divided in half. Or D. Several casualties were inflicted on Union forces. Number 4. Many historians argue that the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln changed the course of Reconstruction. Which of the following is usually cited as an aspect of that change? So what we're saying here is, after President Lincoln was killed, everything changed. So what changed? Think about what was Abraham Lincoln's plan, and then what happened next? Was it A, that the radical Republicans took control of Congress? B, Congress imposed taxes on cotton imports to pay war debt? C, the 13th Amendment was approved by Congress? Or D, Congress repealed legislation regulating railroad construction? All right, number 5. The title of this box says Union Tactics During the Civil War. And remember, all that means is what were the strategies of the Union? And it says one of their strategies was enforcement of an embargo on Confederate goods and an enforcement of a naval blockade of Confederate ports. Okay, so let's stop and think. Embargo means that you can't trade. So they're not going to trade with the Confederacy or the South for their goods. And they're going to block with their Navy ships all the ports in the South. Okay, so why was it so smart to do these things? Why were these tactics effective? A, Confederate states were unable to collect tariffs on manufactured goods. B, Union forces were able to blockade to gain international support. C, Confederate states were unable to use agricultural exports as a source of revenue. Revenue just means as a source of money. Or D, Union forces were able to earn money for supplies by selling confiscated bales of cotton. And so that means they were stealing bales of cotton. All right, number 6 has a political cartoon. So let's take a look really carefully at that before we even look at the question. We see that we have Lincoln's last warning as the title. And it says that Lincoln says, "Now if you don't come down, I'll cut the tree from under you." And so we see a gentleman up in the tree trying to run away from the president. And the tree says slavery. So he's like holding on to slavery so tight. And President Lincoln is saying, "I'm going to cut that tree down." So the question says, how did President Lincoln succeed in permanently abolishing the practice represented by the tree in this cartoon? So in other words, how did President Lincoln abolish slavery? A, by ordering the use of popular sovereignty to decide the issue of slavery. B, by encouraging an armed rebellion of slaves in the South. C, by promoting the passage and ratification of the 13th Amendment. Or D, by helping abolitionists fund the Underground Railroad. Number 7, we see a box with 3 items in there: poll taxes, literacy tests, and the grandfather clauses. So I want you to stop and think, when did people have to take a literacy test? When did people have to pay a poll tax? What were they doing when that had to happen? Stop and think about it. Okay, now let's write the word that comes to mind over next to that box. What were they doing? They were going to do what? Okay, let's read the question. The measures in this list are examples of ways that Southern states weakened the effects of the A, Compromise of 1850, B, 15th Amendment, C, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, or D, Dred Scott versus Sanford decision. Number 8, which of these occurred as a result of the 15th Amendment? Okay, cover up your answer choices. What's the little sentence that we always said would help us remember our amendments? It was Okay, 13th, 14th, and 15th. So the last word of your sentence, that's the 15th Amendment. Okay, write that word over to the side. Okay, now let's go ahead and answer the question. So which of these occurred as a result of the 15th Amendment? A, African American families divided by slavery were reunited. B, newly free men and women moved west to claim land. C, African American men voted in the 1872 presidential election. Or D, newly freed men and women were allowed to apply for U.S. citizenship. Number 9, how did the Freedmen's Bureau most assist in the Reconstruction of the South? So cover up those answer choices, stop and think. What did the Freedmen's Bureau do? A, by dividing large plantations and redistributing the property to former slaves. B, by creating a militia to help enforce the voting rights of former slaves. C, by offering legal assistance and public schools to former slaves. Or D, by petitioning the government to offer money to former slaves. Number 10, we have a box. I'll read each piece there. The establishment of the South's first state-funded public school system, the implementation of a more equitable taxation system, prohibition of racial discrimination in public transportation and accommodations. These reforms were instituted by A, governors during the colonial era, B, Reconstruction government after the Civil War, C, patriots during the American Revolution, or D, revitalists after the Second Great Awakening. All right, guys, we made it to the last page. Number 11, in his first inaugural address. So right when he becomes the president the very first time, President Abraham Lincoln stated his main goal for the nation was to, okay, cover up those answer choices. Remember, picture it. We've got Abraham Lincoln, and he's just been elected, and the northern people are all, Lincoln, 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 because they think he's going to do one thing. But then when he gets up there and starts talking, he says a little something different. So let's read our answer choices. What did he say? Was his main goal to A, use the vote to resolve the conflict over slavery, B, free all slaves in the United States, C, uphold the Dred Scott decision, or D, preserve the Union? Number 12. Which argument was used by President Abraham Lincoln to explain his policy of leniency towards the South after the Civil War? Okay, so let's reword that question. In other words, what was President Lincoln thinking when he decided he wanted to be kind or generous to the South after the Civil War? A, most Southerners have remained loyal to the Union during the war. B, most Southerners are willing to grant equality to formerly enslaved persons. C, the federal government has no authority to punish states for secession. Or D, healing the nation's wounds is let me read this one again. D, healing the nation's wounds quickly is essential. Okay, number 13. One effect of the Dawes Act was that Dawes Act. Ooh, I'm thinking. That was your warm-up yesterday, you guys. Think, what did we say was the biggest thing going on with the Dawes Act? I'm thinking Dawes Desert. Who was involved? Why would this be a good or a bad thing? Okay, let's read our answer choices. A, caused many American Indian tribes to create written constitutions. B, provided education to American Indians through locally run schools. C, limited the voting rights of American Indians. Or D, harmed the communal structure of American Indian society. That last one's a little confusing. What it's saying is it really messed with the way of life of the Indians because they had something going and then it changed.